share my screen. Hello and welcome. Thank you all for being here with us today on September 16th, 2021. I am Nick Kanoki, calling in from my home in Lander, Wyoming, and you will have to forgive me. I may be extra smiley today because my partner gave birth to our daughter last night, and they are happy and healthy, and so I can hardly contain myself. And with that, I would like to thank our September sponsor for ALN Thursday at 4, this program, ABS Group. ABS Group is a great supporter of the ALN, and we are super grateful for that support for this and other programs. So find out more at abs-group.com. Our patron sponsors for the ALN are ABS Quality Evaluations, and ABS Group, and Onuma System. And we have other organizational members that also help make this and other programs possible. So again, we are very grateful for their continued support so that we can do things like this. And one last note before we get underway, next week on this program, we will have Jesse Rothkopf with Life Cycle Engineering, and that will be September 23rd at 4 p.m. Eastern. And with that, I would just like to say, if you're out there watching, please send us any questions, comments, or feedback, and we will, if there are questions, direct them to Laverne, and otherwise entertain the commentary. And thanks for participating. Jim, why don't you take us away?
Great. Well, thank you, Nick. And it's great to have the happiest man in the world introduce our program. So that's awesome. I've known Nick since he was a little kid. True. Yeah, that's good. So that's great, Nick.
So you're almost a grandpa then. Congratulations, Jim.
Want to be uncle. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
I feel a little bit like an uncle. Yeah, that's great. Anyhow, welcome everybody today. And Laverne, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Great to have you. And can you tell us where you're calling from today?
Yeah, I'm in a little town a little bit northeast of Nashville, in farmland. It's called Lafayette, Tennessee, in Macon County. I say I'm closer to Kentucky than I am to Nashville, actually. So you get across the border very quickly.
Nice. Beautiful area. I have friends there in that relative area. So I met Laverne several years ago, like many things, probably because of Jack Dempsey. I think it's probably had something to do with it. But got involved with facilities management and TC 267, and attended a few meetings. And had always been trying to figure out how I could make a contribution to their effort or connect our two efforts. And we'll be talking as we go along here today about kind of the intersection or connection of asset management and facilities management. But Laverne finally found a way to get me connected where I hopefully can make some contribution to a piece of work. We'll talk about that as well. But Laverne, we like to start with origin stories. So
Sure.
Usually we say asset management, but how'd you get involved in facilities management?
Well, it kind of falls back on, if you'll take a look at I'm a chameleon. I finally came up with my identity a couple of years ago. I was laid off from work because in 2009, when many of the population was laid off, they closed our offices when I was living in Atlanta. And I scrambled around and I actually started working as a contract worker for Cornet Global and met several of their members. And after a few years at Cornet Global, I said, hey, I'm looking for a change. And a good friend of mine, Nancy Sankis, put my resume into IFMA. So association work, I had no idea what facility management was beyond, what Cornet Global kind of touched on it tangentially. But I'm the kind of person who kind of says, yeah, I'll jump in and just do what I can do and see where I can go with it. So
That's good. And I try to have my antenna up for acronyms that not everybody might not know. So what's IFMA stand for?
IFMA is the International Facility Management Association.
Awesome. That's good. And that's been around a long time, right?
I believe they're on 45 years, I think, 1980. So do the math if I have that one wrong, but 1980, I think, is when they started nationally, and then they branched into an international association.
And
And
that's, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said, I've been with them since 2000, in some form or fashion. I've been with them since 2012. So.
Right. So they're like the big dog, right? Are there other, I don't really know of other facility management professional associations. So.
Oh, well, certainly in North America, Australia has its own facility management association. Though in the UK, it's the International Workplace and Facility Management Association. Now it was formerly called the British International Facility Management, but they're called IWFM. And then around the world, there's a website called Global FM that lists several facility management associations. We have the Middle East, Brazil, Germany, there are several of them that come together in that Global FM space. So
I have to laugh. That sounds so British to have the words British and global or whatever in the same sentence,
Yeah. Some days, but no, it's actually the Global FM is it's an association for associations. So they bring everyone together to try to, for the common goal of advancing the profession.
Yeah. So in IFMA, you got involved in training and education, right? And then standards. How did you get into that line?
So I was hired at IFMA to work on their professional development programs. And 3 days in, they asked me how I felt about research and standards. So I said, sure. I had never done anything in research and standards, but I am a chameleon. So I said, yep, I'll jump in there. And for 2 years, I managed the research department, and the standards fell underneath that. And part of that was being the administrator for TC 267 for the US Mirror Committee or the US TAG. So IFMA is the official administrator for that US TAG, and I'm the person who kind of fills the role for them.
Nice.
And I just kind of, I am a detail oriented person by necessity. I can keep enough of it going so that things hopefully don't fall between the cracks, but I do more of making the connections and connecting the dots. And so that's where it helps. And I think for a lot of at least for our tag, it has helped to have someone who really actually has some understanding of the industry to be that administrator, to then go out, and kind of work with all the experts and work with all the documents. So.
Yeah, neat. Yeah, you really, in our interactions in the meetings that we've been involved in, you're just a remarkable facilitator.
Oh,
you take the lead when you need to, and but you're happy to have other people and just prod them as they needed to be prodded to keep them on the tracks. You seem to be quite good at that.
Well, thank you. I think it's a fun job. I like listening to the conversations. I like learning everything that I can. And I like surrounding myself with intelligent people. Certainly most everyone in the room, might be smarter than me, and that's perfectly fine with me. I just like to make sure that, every voice gets heard, and it's a fun job. They say, standards aren't sexy. And I'm like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. I've been to Japan. I've been to Australia. I've been to Budapest. I've been all over the world, and I have these great conversations. I can go to so many countries, and I have a friend, someone I can have a glass of wine with or something. And it's just a great, or a great thing to be a part of. And
You know,
we're pushing out, quality material, and that helps advance the industry. So it's a fun thing to do.
yeah, it's been interesting to have been a part of the traditional ISO, management system development process where we,
Mhm.
like for TC 251, we did the same thing. We traveled to all these really amazing places with interesting hosts and just got to meet all these incredible people. I mean,
Right.
really, it's like the leading people from each country on these topics. And it's,
Right.
wow, I can't begin to say how much, my understanding and, increased and how my view of what the situation was
Mhm.
changes, Yeah, that's awesome. I also consider myself to be a generalist. I have a BS in mathematics from a liberal arts college.
There you go.
That's about
If,
that's pretty well defines me, I guess.
yeah, if that didn't help you with your asset management career, I don't know what would have.
Yeah, no. I always said having a degree in math was always the right answer, or at least was never the wrong answer. It's like, yeah, can you do it? Well, what's your degree in? Math? Oh yeah, well, you can figure it out.
Right.
Yeah, that's good. And I think facilities management, well, standards, as you say, but facilities management and asset management are similar in that it does practitioners and professionals really need to have a diverse set of skills that range from very technical to, at the upper levels, to have excellent soft skills about
Mhm.
speaking and communicating and influencing management and things in that direction.
Yeah, it's kind of leading from, maybe, and then facility management, there's always been a conversation about having a seat at the table. And sometimes I kind of want to say that's somewhat the wrong conversation to have, because you don't have to be a leader by being at the table. You can influence in other ways. And it goes back to a quote that I just love and try to live by and try to remember. When I get frustrated with things, and it's a Helen Keller quote that says, "I long to accomplish a great and noble task, but it is my chief duty to accomplish small tasks as if they were great and noble." And that's what I think a lot about this profession. It's, you're in there every day, and you kind of tongue in cheek say, yeah, we're changing the toilet paper, but you're not. You're making, the quality of life better for people. And if you're not doing that well, people recognize it. And if you are doing it well, you're kind of invisible. But that's okay. It takes a spurt. I think a special personality of a person who can do their job and be invisible and be okay with that. And that's what facility managers and asset managers are, I think.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's like the umpire at a baseball game.
Yes.
If you don't ever notice them, they're doing a great job.
They're doing a fantastic job.
Exactly. If you do notice them, probably something.
Yes.
I've been having a terrible time this week as a facility manager in my own home, and that 2 days ago, the motor on our geothermal heat pump decided to quit.
Mm.
And I contemplated that it only lasted 7 years, which doesn't seem enough. Then I thought, well, that's way better than if it had lasted, from my perspective, than if it had lasted 10 years and 1 day, because now it's still under warranty.
Yes, but did you do the life cycle cost analysis of that before you bought it? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, the analysis when I bought it was replacing the original, which had only lasted 13 years, which we weren't very happy about.
No, right.
I'm still trying to sort out what I think about this altogether. But certainly asset. It's a perfect example of asset management, facilities management, and how they fit together. So, can you tell us what's your elevator speech about facilities management to people? When some people say, "Yeah, so what's that? What's facilities management about?"
Yeah, and I asked, well, it depends. I asked them what are they in? What industry they're in? If you're in the industry like education I say, who's the one that's, making sure the light, well, it's really who's making sure the lights are on, who's making sure you can come into work every day, and who's making sure you're comfortable about doing that. If you can do that and you never have to call somebody because you can't get in the door, or there's a flood, then that's there's a facility manager responsible for that. So
That's good. I like it. So when did you first hear about asset management?
probably when we started to write 41001, which would have been around 2017. 41001 is the management system standard for facility management. Of course, 55001 had already been out there. We had a call, or Jim Whitaker, who was the chair of the U.S. Mirror Committee at the time, had a call from another tag administrator who said, why are you writing a standard that already exists? Why are you developing a management system standard that already exists? And so he said, he had a great conversation, and I won't name the name of the person, but he had a great conversation with her and kind of explained how the two are different, and they are very different, even though there are similarities and there are commonalities, but they have different, I think at the end of the day, they just have a different direction that they kind of go into.
Yeah.
So she understood it afterwards, oh, okay. And I think that's kind of the crux of the facility management challenge, is to push their value proposition and help people understand that it is a discipline and it is a profession that will bring value to the organization if you go beyond, is the room too hot or too cold? You need to go beyond those types of things and think about the value behind it.
Yeah, no, that's good. I was, as you've heard in some of these meetings that we've had recently, is that I described asset management as being broader but narrower, facilities management being, much deeper in that area. I think from an asset management perspective, people familiar with 55001, it'd be easy to conceive of if you were, at a high level in an organization and really thinking about all the assets. And we spend a lot of time thinking about really the breadth of different kinds of assets, including intangible assets and natural assets, and et cetera, and systems, et cetera, in addition to the physical assets, that if you had a strategic asset management plan and then asset management plans, you might have one asset management plan for fleet or one for IT, but you might also have one for facilities management. And I think the answer to the question of what would your asset management plan for facilities management would be ISO 41001. Does that make sense to you, or does that resonate?
That does resonate a little. I was, when I think about this, and I'm still not sure I understand all of what asset management entails, and I certainly don't have the answers. That's what we're trying to figure out ourselves. But, I think about, it goes back to meeting the needs of the demand organization. So, and I don't know if that's a term well known, but in facility management, we talk about the demand organization being that organization that has a need and the authority to meet, to meet those, has needs and requirements, and then the authority to have those met. So what does the organization need? What is that demand organization's requirements, and which discipline better fits that? And it may not be that only one does, because we also have energy management and 21001 for information and technology and security, and all of the other ones. So I just have to go back to always the demand organization. So if you are an airport, what best suits your needs? Is it asset management? And I tend to think it might be, or is it facility management? But if you're a hospital, then what suits your needs better? If you're a public school system, are you looking at the assets, or are you looking at, and I don't want to say that asset management isn't about people, but to some degree, I think facility management is a bit more about understanding how to make those people in that facility productive and how to keep them, keep them being productive. So to me, especially a K through 12 facility might be more a facility management driver. I think they sit side by side often. It's who's in the lead, who can take the lead. You said it when you said I'm a facilitator, and sometimes I take the lead and sometimes I don't. I think facility management and asset management need to understand themselves in those terms. Which one is taking the lead in this situation? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, you certainly, can see this from and I've had a little bit of experience in facilities management, not a lot. But, if you have a strong facilities management program, that's a great place to launch, a broader asset management program from. Because it's, we can put things in silos and buckets, but we know everything's connected.
Exactly.
It's about the people, it's about the IT, everything's an IT asset. Mike Bordenaro, our communications director, it's you all know here on this program, will tell you it's about BIM, and BIM's all about facilities, and facilities, everything's connected to a facility. You drive your car out of your garage and drive to work and park there in the parking lot.
Right.
It's all about facilities. So it's interesting to. I guess that's my current top of mind topic is to see to appreciate things through different frames rather than right or wrong or whatever. It's like, oh, okay, you see it this way.
Yeah.
That person sees it that way. And, so what's the connection? What's the connection?
Yeah, it reminds me, you and I were having a conversation with the others, and I showed an image where I had facility management in the middle, if you remember. And then I had all of the other disciplines around the circle. So asset management was off to the side, and occupational health and safety. And you laughed at it and said, I think asset management might be in the middle. And you're right. It depends on your perspective. Asset management or energy management, depending on your perspective, might be this. I was thinking of Galileo, and who is the sun in the middle of that universe, right?
Yeah.
So but I think what we really need to do is get out of our own way sometimes. And like you say, think about, it's more of a network of connections than it is these siloed kind of disciplines. And we need to stop trying to kind of own the space and understand how we all better serve, the purpose of the demand organization. So
yeah, it is interesting, when you get in, there's a whole world that for those people that haven't been directly involved in standards development. And I've been involved in ASTM and now, and still am, but also in ISO. It's, it's a little different world, when you get into, people that are used to talking about standards and standards development. And in the ISO, especially in the management system standards, which are so popular and so well known, that, this thinking of them as silos and different systems is, we need to break through that barrier and understand how they all work together. And I think that's a rising thought in the standards world in general, I hope, is it's not about how they're different, it's about how they're the same and how they can work together, and how if organizations are doing one, it greatly simplifies doing another.
yes, it is definitely. And I just emailed, I don't know if you were on the ISO, ANSI had an AIF call yesterday, and I was listening to the conversation, and I just emailed them a list of 13 other technical committees that I said, facility management is impacted by almost anything that any standard that these technical committees develop, T51 included. But that's what I think we need a better understanding of. You don't have to develop a standard to have standards developed for you. And I keep saying this, I think if I say it often enough in our tag and in the greater TC, it'll finally kind of resonate. facility management standards are being written by others. Asset management standards to some degree might be being written by others. If you don't understand the impact of, of what another standard organization is doing. TC59 is the one that's writing standards on BIM. So if we're not at that table, especially both asset management and facility management, if we're not at that table, those standards are being written for us, and we're gonna, kind of inherit them rather than be a voice, at the table.
Yeah. So you want to share a little bit about this this team that we've been involved in?
The one that, so this conversation that Jim and I are talking about, we just had a mirror committee meeting, and the question comes up maybe 2 times a year at a minimum: what is asset management and what is facility management? And what I threw out to our team was, let's figure that out. Let's finally sit down and take some time and just, we can write, we don't consider it at this point that we're writing a standard, but we can certainly write a technical report, but we can just bring some clarity to the industry regarding asset management and facility management. And, what I really love about it, and I think everyone is in agreement, that was on the call. So there are 5 of us right now who will look at this, kind of draft a smaller document and then send it out for comment and consensus within the US, and then take that up to our technical committee, TC267. Is that what I really love is that no one's trying to own the space. We're not trying to say we're better, or you're better, or we're just trying to figure it out. And really, they have to complement each other. A facility is an asset. That's just the hard truth of it, right? But facilities have people, and facilities have to run to be productive, and asset managers don't run facilities. So we just have to complement each other, I think. And so I really have high hopes that what this paper will do is, first, just bring that clarity to the industry, both our industries. And then secondly, maybe branch into other standards or other opportunities. Like, I can see a standard that is guidance on how to implement both asset management and facility management system standards, or guidance on, I think the industry is just kind of needs help with saying, which one do I do? People will come to me all day long and say, which management system standard do I implement? Why should I implement 41001? And even before I say, well, here's why you should take 41001, I'm saying, well, what is your industry? What is your demand organization's objectives? Maybe you shouldn't implement 41001. Maybe you should implement 14001 for energy management, 50 or environmental management, or 50 or 5001 for energy management. You really have to just step back and say, what is it that we're trying to do for our respective industries and others, and then what's the best way to help them. So I'm really excited. We have a gentleman from I want to say he's out of a university in Minnesota who's writing his dissertation on some of this, and so I think we're going to have just great input and feedback from him. And then, like I said, just brilliant minds around the table having these conversations that you and I have started to be a part of, and, wanting to do something that just is, it's great, because no one's profiting from this, right? When we write standards, when we write papers, we're not profiting from it because we can't sell it ourselves. It's not our IP, but it brings something and gives it back to the community. And I love that part about the whole organization and the whole job. So.
Yeah. This is, before we let Nick come in, I just wanted to, one thought was that when I first got involved in standards through ASTM, I think there's a general statement that you can make that you say, why do you do it? And it's really about assurance. If something bad happens and somebody puts a microphone in your mouth and says, how did you let this happen? And you can instead of saying, well, we thought we were pretty smart and we did some things, but it didn't work out, is not that compelling. But if you say, we have considered everything,
Everything. Mhm.
and using these international standards as guidance. And unfortunately, this still occurred. We're going to try to do better.
Yeah, but we know how, we have a way to go back and see how it occurred and how we can improve versus just trying to even understand how it occurred. I actually think standards are a way to just get rid of the noise, because we spend a lot of our day going back over the same things over and over again, or recreating what somebody else has already done. And so if you have a standard that already starts your playbook, you get rid of a lot of the noise, and then you can start to focus on innovation versus just focusing on the basic foundational pieces of your processes that you have to do. So that's where I think the standard just kind of wipes your slate and puts everybody on a level playing field for that purpose of starting your processes. The other thing, another big platform of mine is knowledge management. And I was reading, I don't know how many people are aware of apqc.org, but I was reading a quote, a blurb from them that said 10 out of every 40 hours, out of every 40 working hours is unproductive time, and people are spending their time looking for information, recreating information that exists, or seeking expertise. I think that standards, if people were to follow them, would completely, well, maybe not totally wipe all of that out, but maybe you have 2 hours of unproductive time or 3 hours of unproductive time, not 10. I really do believe that if you could put a standard in someone's hands and say, here's how we start, then you've already brought them a baseline of information.
This is a great discussion, and I would love it to continue. If you have some extra time, Laverne, that would be great.
Sure.
I just want to, again, thank our sponsors, ABS Group, for sponsoring September of ALN Thursday at 4, and our patron sponsors, of course, ABS Quality Evaluations and Onuma System, as well as our other organizational members that you see here. And I think Mike Bordenero, Director Communications of the Asset Leadership Network, was interested in joining the conversation. And I'm excited to see where it goes from here. Great points already made, Laverne and Jim.
Thanks.
Yeah, you can't talk about facilities without me wanting to chime in. It has been really a great discussion. And before we get into facilities, I wanted to ask you, Laverne, what have you learned from being involved in standards? I'm sure there's many things, but are there a couple things that really kind of woke you up?
I wouldn't say woke me up. There's always, everyone has heard the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And that is absolutely true about standards development. I don't believe any one country is going to come up with a document that is better than the collective minds that sit around the table and develop a consensus position on standards. But really, when you go and you meet other people, you learn that we all have essentially the same challenges. We're all facing budget cuts or lack of, facility management right now is facing a big workforce imbalance where people are retiring and people who are coming in, the age gap is incredible. So we're facing that, and we're facing that all over the world. And when you start to realize you have so many more things in common than you do that aren't in common, you can sit down at the table and take up those issues.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of our ALN senior fellows, Art Curlin, is with University Health, and University Health is a member also of the ALN. And I had tried to get him to join in, but he's multitasking and can't join. Last night, he gave a presentation, international presentation. We co-produced, facilitated an event with the Australian Asset Management Council. And he gave an excellent presentation on how he had his hospital asset management department certified and then recertified in ISO 55001. Cool. And all of a sudden his facilities department was saying, hey, what are you doing there? And so now they're teaching the facilities department and the IT department said the same
Yes.
thing. So your comment about, the sun is actually moving, we need some kind of graphic that shows that asset management can go forward, or
Mhm.
maybe it's different times. Facility management is more the center when a building is just getting started or something, and then it goes, I don't know, but we need to see about creating a graphic that explains this dynamic that can occur.
Yeah,
Or,
so
or look at
I-
your KPIs, what is the KPI of the organization? Because which is going to help you get to that KPI better, so.
Mhm.
So I used to have a whole folder back in the days before everything was electronic of different diagrams I was doing government property management as a type of asset management. And they all had property management in the center and then all these other functions around the outside. And then one of our board members, Bob Kaler, came up with the universe, three-dimension, computer-driven universe that still had the sun, which was property management. That's the center of the universe. But yeah, I'm trying to imagine what that graphic would look like. But between Mike and Kamon and Numa, they should be able to come up with one.
Yeah, we'll work on that.
Maybe
And
we
then,
need a Star Wars reference and have two suns, and we can put ours just side by side, and Tatooine, has those.
Well, since you brought it up, one of my first presentations about BIM, when people were scratching their head about BIM, I said, everybody knows what BIM is. Princess Leia loaded a BIM of the Death Star into R2-D2 and said, help me, Obi-Wan, you're my only hope.
Fantastic.
Obi-Wan brought it to Luke. Luke brought it to the Rebel Alliance. They quickly downloaded it, found the weak link, pre-programmed the X-Fighters to deliver a bomb to the intake valve on the surface of the Death Star. And the Army Corps of Engineers actually asked my permission to use it and played it at the Society of American Military Engineers with the Death Star music playing to a group.
That's great. That is fantastic. I was doing a presentation on standards, and I used a board reference. So you have Star Wars and you have Star Trek, and I think those two series can just cover everything that we have to do.
Yeah, basically. So the other thing that I was interested in learning is we're always trying to help people in terms of how to start their asset management journey, but you're deeper in. How do you talk to people about starting their involvement in standards writing? Do you have something that you say?
Yeah, I first of all, I say just, do you want to contribute? Do you want to contribute to your industry? Because everyone has something to contribute. And I'm not a facility manager, but I've been around the conversation so that I start to ask questions. And well, I'm the layperson in the room. This doesn't make sense to me out of everything I've heard over the last decade of facility management. So if it's not making sense to me, there's someone else out there that's not going to make sense to. And I think that everyone has something to contribute in that sense. And so my first question is, do you want to contribute? And that contribution doesn't have to cost a lot of money. It doesn't have to cost a lot of time, but we need people on large scales. You can write or you can review. And right now, to me, some of those reviewers are more important or as important as the people who are writing, because when I'm writing on the standard side, I get stuck in the weeds and I, kind of forget what's everything is supposed to be about. And the reviewer comes behind me and says, hey, this doesn't make sense. Or did you really mean to do that? Or you've forgotten about this? And so there's always a way to contribute, and the scope of how much you do is up to you. But I would say just jump in with both feet and start, and we'll find there's no resource I couldn't find a way to utilize. So we will find the resource, so a position for you.
How do people get involved in the US tag for TC 267?
Well, they find me. Basically they find me. So I do work. IFMA is the administrator, but I work as a contract worker for IFMA as the administrator. And I've been doing that almost solely since 2012. There was an interim where I wasn't. But I would get you involved, and we do have an application process. We do have, as everything, you have to keep a balance of stakeholders in your TC, but we're kind of loose on that because we really, we just want kind of the brains at the table. What we do really want though is your involvement. So it's not come and sit down and say nothing. We want, even if you, I don't think there are any stupid questions, because if there are, I've asked them all. So I really want people who are ready to come and raise their hand and say, I can review that, I can look for that. Right now, I'm looking for people who, personally, and I think asset management and facility management can do this 267 and 251 in the US and start to say, where's the gaps? What should we be writing? What should we be taking to our mirror committees? So that we can start writing these standards. Another role that I play, it's a volunteer role, but in 267, I'm the convener of our roadmap group. And what we're doing is trying to understand, the strategy behind why we're developing what standard, and when a proposal comes to us, why would we take that proposal up? How does it fit into how does it support the management system standard, and B, how does it fit into the body of work that we're creating? Is it the right time to write a standard? Because just because it's someone's idea doesn't mean that you don't have the foundation behind, foundational work behind it to write that standard. And one thing I'm trying to have people understand, because we've had a few standards where we're writing and then we realize halfway into that not everyone has the same understanding of what we're writing. Write a technical report first. Let everyone have that information about what this change management, or we wrote a technical report on facility management, just a baseline understanding of what is facility management, and then start to write your standard about it, right?
How many pages was that?
It might have been 20. It's pretty short, 16 to 20. We're writing one right now. We're finishing one up on technology and facility management. How does technology benefit facility management? It's a technical report. There's no shoulds, there's no shalls, it's just about, this is what technology can do for the industry.
Yeah.
And then you start to find out which standards need to come out of it.
So our resident equity expert, Cecilia Mowat, has asked about equity in facility management. And I'm sure over 10 years, you've seen ebbs and flows in that.
Elaborate more on the question so I understand what.
There is a push now for equity involvement of stakeholders.
Sure, yeah. In the industry itself or in the standard?
In the, well, either way you
part
want
of the standard,
yeah.
Part of the standard. So, okay. In the standards themselves, so what we've done recently is an undertaking to align our standards and our future standards with the UN SDG goals. We're also writing a technical report on that. So definitely we're looking at equity and some of the other areas where facility management itself impacts the area. In terms of how it plays in the standards, it really, equity is an interesting question, because you really have to look in terms of facility management on your maturity level of your organization. And in some countries, that maturity level just isn't there. I think that standards, again, I think I said it before, it kind of levels the playing field, and you'll see where every scope says this is for small and large organizations. This is for in terms of facility management, we don't have a gender equality. We don't have women can't do this. Well, we don't have it anymore. We do have a few. We do have a few groups of women in hard hats and high heels is one of the groups that's called, where they'll tell you their early stories about walking into the room and being told they needed to get a cup of coffee. But I think that probably more than half of the facility managers I know are women, and they're brilliant women. So yeah. So, and definitely we are looking at, college education and university degree programs, and women are coming out of those programs. we haven't had in our TC yet the need to, or I guess the opportunity to pair with or twin with any of the other emerging markets. But we certainly don't discourage them, from joining, from participating. IFMA itself is trying to understand how it can better facilitate the opportunities for all of its markets. IFMA has, I'm going to get this number wrong because I haven't looked at the website in a while, but it was, I think, 140 chapters globally. So IFMA is looking at, how do we as IFMA bring the awareness of standards to all of our markets? Not only that, but what do we need to do to make sure that they can be involved and make sure that their voices can be heard as well? So that's an early conversation that they're having, but they are focused on that conversation.
Excellent.
So I know Laverne has to leave soon. We don't want to hold you too long. And obviously we could go on talking for a long time.
Actually, we want to.
I was apprehensive, I'll say, but you guys have made it very easy.
For years, but Jim is working to tie the standards bodies together. So we'll let that develop over time.
Definitely, absolutely.
At any rate, well, thanks to Mike, but especially Laverne. Thanks to you. That was a great conversation. I keep saying every week, I said, this is the best one yet. Well, this might be the best one yet.
Well, thank you very much. I enjoyed it. Jim said he wasn't going to lob any hard questions at me, so I appreciate that.
All right, and Nick, we need to see your smiling face one more time so we can say congratulations and
yay.
Congratulations, to Megan and the new as yet unnamed baby, right?
Yes, I will shower them in y'all's affections added to mine.
You were smart not to ask for name suggestions in the chat, Nick.
Laverne. Maybe we'll end up being named Laverne.
No, don't do that. Poor child. Really, because I'm not going to say everyone on this call. How many can refer back to Laverne and Shirley? So, that's it. Yeah,
that's great.
Well, and thanks to all the audience and the input. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, that's good. All right. Thanks, everybody. And we'll leave you with Nick's smiling face and the rest of us waving goodbye. So thanks.